This is Alabama Politics with Steve Flowers, an in-depth interview with Alabama's top political newsmakers. Now, from the studios of Troy University, here is Steve Flowers.
I'm Steve Flowers, and welcome to Alabama Politics. Folks, we're very fortunate tonight to have as our guest Judge Chris McCool from Pickens County. Judge McCool was on my show 4 or 5 years ago when he was running for the Court of Criminal Appeals. He was successful in that race. He was a DA prior to that in his home county of Pickens, and has served with distinction for 6 years on the state Court of Criminal Appeals, and he's moving up to the state Supreme Court hopefully next year in 2024 elections, which is right around the corner. And we appreciate Judge McCool taking time out of his schedule to be with us. He's already scooting around the state and campaigning and getting around everything. He's a great campaigner and a great judge. Judge McCool, good to have you on the show.
It's great to be here. Appreciate you having me back.
I may slip up and call you Chris every now and then.
Hey, that's what everybody calls me.
I consider Chris McCool a friend.
Yes.
He's a little younger than me. What are you not, about 50 years old?
55.
55 years old.
Yes, sir.
Anyway, he's been in government and politics and farming and everything else all of his life in Pickens County. His family had been deep-rooted farmers in that county for years, generations actually. His mom and daddy are board members of the Alabama Farmers Federation, Alpha. He's been a board member, and we're just glad to have him on the show. Chris, so you were born and raised in Pickens County?
Born and raised in Pickens County. When I was campaigning last time, I'd going around the state, and people would ask me if I'd lived in Gordo all my life. I said, well, not yet, but I plan to.
Now tell folks, you know, there's a lot of folks in the River region and Jefferson County and all don't know where Gordo is.
Well, Gordo is, it's about 30 miles west of Tuscaloosa. If you're going from Tuscaloosa, Alabama to Columbus, Mississippi on Highway 82, Gordo's about halfway between. And I actually live about 10 miles north of Gordo in a little community called Zion Community. So that's where I grew up. That's where our farm's been. My great-granddaddy for sure lived on that farm. We think my great-great-great-granddaddy did.
Was he McCool too?
McCool, that's right.
I knew McCool had been there a long time in that county.
In fact, I live on McCool Road.
Is that right?
People.
So your great-great-granddaddy may have been the one that started farming
That's right.
that area right above Gordo.
That's right. That's right.
That's right on Tuscaloosa, heading to Tuscaloosa, isn't it?
It is. Gordo's, you know, we're about, from the line, we're only about probably 10 miles or less. Actually less than that from Gordo itself, but from where I live about 10 miles or less. And so yeah, when we say we're going to town, we're talking about Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, everybody in West Alabama does.
That's right.
Everybody in your county. And Lamar and Fayette do too.
That's right.
Lamar, Fayette. Now, let me ask you this question. I want to go back to your roots and everything, but you were DA prior to running for the Court of Criminal Appeals, which was a great training ground. How long were you DA in that circuit?
So I was actually district attorney nearly 18 years.
18 years?
That's right.
Well, how old were you when you were elected?
When I became district attorney, I was, if I remember right, I was 31 years old. And you may recall that our current Attorney General, Steve Marshall, when he campaigned for Attorney General the first time, he said that he was the second youngest district attorney when he took office, and that's because of me. I was a couple of years younger than him, and I'd already taken office a little bit before him. So
he was that young. He took district.
He was young too. That's right. That's right. And so
was he born and raised in Marshall? Do you know?
I don't know, but we always.
I guess he was, wasn't he?
He and Judge Richard Minor, who's also on the Court of Criminal Appeals, he and Judge Minor and I served as district attorneys together for many years, and were friends.
Where was Minor from? Over in Trussville?
Yes.
Pell City.
Minor was from Pell City.
Yeah,
Judge Minor,
right.
It was a district attorney in St. Clair County. I was district attorney in Pickens, Fayette, and Lamar.
That's the circuit then.
That's right.
Pickens, Fayette, and Lamar. How many circuit judges did y'all have?
One.
Just one circuit
Just one.
judge?
That's right. We were a true circuit. Our circuit judge rode circuit. He had Carrollton was the county seat in Pickens County, Fayette, of course, in Fayette, and then Vernon in Lamar County. And we spent many, many miles and many, many years prosecuting and handling all the criminal cases in that area.
So you were DA from age 31 to 47, 48.
That's right.
When you went on the court, you were DA when you came on the show last time.
I was DA when I came on last time. I think I was, I'm losing track of time, but I think I was 51 when I took office on the Court of Criminal Appeals. I last got elected district attorney in 2016, and then decided after that I wanted to run for this seat on this court
in 2018.
In 2018, and was successful, and have really enjoyed it being on this court.
That's a good Court of Criminal Appeals.
We're blessed.
But then go back to your roots.
Yes, sir.
So your great-great-grandfather settled around Gordo in Pickens County.
That's right.
McCool Road.
That's right.
So your grandfather farmed.
Right.
And your daddy farmed.
That's right.
Don't you have a brother that's in the farming business?
My brother's a lawyer.
That's what I thought, yeah.
But he lives on the farm. He and I both, neither one of us left, and we've raised our families on the farm.
So your family was raised right there with your great, and
yes, sir.
I love that.
In fact, I told you I live in the Zion community. So I also, as you know, pastor a church, Zion Primitive Baptist Church, that was constituted in 1847. My great-granddaddy, whose name was James Wesley McCool, was the pastor there. Now I'm the pastor, now, but the house he built on our farm over 100 years ago is still standing. It's an old farmhouse that used to have a little dog trot opening, We closed that in, and various of my children or Tim's children have lived there, but right now my daughter and her husband live in that old house.
Your daughter, and how many children do you have?
I have 4 children, 2 girls and 2 boys. 3 of them are married. My oldest daughter is married to a young man who's in private practice with my brother, but my brother's a Primitive Baptist preacher, he's a Primitive Baptist preacher.
Are they in Gordo?
Right. Well, they're next door to us. They live in a trailer.
So your brother is a preacher like you are.
Right.
And a lawyer.
Right.
And probably farms too.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And your daughter married a fellow who is a preacher and a lawyer and they live in your great-great-granddaddy's house.
Yes. Now that daughter her husband works for the Forestry Commission. He's not a preacher or a lawyer, but my oldest daughter lives just a stone's throw from my house, and they have my first grandson.
What'd they name him?
Cal, like Cal Ripken.
They named him after the baseball player?
No, they named him, his full name's Callahan, which the way it's spelled means lover of churches.
Is that right?
And that's what my daughter wanted to
Now what number daughter? Is she your first
She's
child?
my oldest. She's my oldest daughter. I have a daughter who's 28, a son who's 25, another daughter who's 24, and a younger son that's 21. The 3 oldest are married. So
and how many of them live there in your home county?
3 of them live there. My oldest son, Austin, is married to a young lady whose father is a Primitive Baptist preacher, and also he's the deputy director of the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. And they live over in Georgia in Milledgeville, where she's getting her master's degree in English literature. And he's the only one that lives away. My youngest daughter and her husband live in that old house. And then my youngest son is a junior at the University of Alabama. He has an apartment over there, but he comes back and forth. So we're all kind of there close together.
Was your wife from Pickens County?
Yeah, she lived about 5 miles from me.
I'm a doggone. Where'd you go to college?
So we both went to the University of Alabama.
I love it.
So
and did y'all know each other growing up?
We knew each other. We didn't go to the same school, but it's too long a story to tell. But I'll just put it this way: I had my eye on her from the teenager on up. She didn't know too much about me, I don't think, but finally, the first time I asked her out, she said no, but a couple of years later, she said yes. I tell her it's the biggest mistake of her life, but the best thing that ever happened to me.
Well, now, your grandson, Cal, how far away does he live from y'all?
Oh, we walk across the yard to get to his house.
Is that right?
Yeah, so he's 6 months old.
Well, be careful. You might want to, when he starts talking, whatever name your wife wants to be called and what you want to be called, you better train them early, because I got a granddaughter who's now 11, but she started talking when she was about 2. My older daughter's a lawyer in Vestavia, and she has one daughter named Kate, and we were swimming when she was about 2 years old, starting to talk, and I said, Jenny, what did she call me? She'd give me a name. She named me Geese. Geese. Like the plural, not just goose, but geese. And how she came up with it, I'll never know.
That's funny.
But you better, whatever name y'all got picked out, you better start telling Cal early on what it is.
We're trying, but we both said that somebody asked us what we're going to be called. I said, we'll be called whatever he calls us.
Well, that's what happened with me. And I've got 2 young grandsons now, my other daughter, and they've been told to call me Geese, so my name's Geese.
Geese, I like that.
Plural.
Yes, sir.
I get to think, I wonder if they named me because I look like an old geezer or something. You know, your age will catch up with you. I had cataract surgery this week,
yes, sir.
and I got to look in the mirror. I've always looked forward to it because every old person I ever knew who got it done, it's like getting new eyes.
Right.
And it really is, Chris. I got looking at television the night or two after I got it done, and I looked in the mirror, and I said, doggone, that's an old-looking fella in the mirror. So when you get it done, you're going to find out you don't look as young as you used to.
Well, I know 6 years has made a difference. Last time I ran 6 years ago, I can tell that I'm a little bit older now.
Chris, tell since you're talking about that,
Yes, sir.
tell our viewers, I know it's confusing to the average person, layman, non-lawyer, about the Supreme Court and how it's made up and that sort of thing. Yeah. Tell them about it being 9 Supreme Court, and I think there's 6. There's 2 lower levels,
right.
which you're on. The Court of Criminal Appeals has 6 members, and then the Court of Civil Appeals has 6 members.
It's actually 5 members.
Oh, 5 members, okay.
Yeah, so our appellate court system is made up, as you said, of 3 appellate courts. The 2 intermediate appellate courts are the Court of Criminal Appeals, which I'm on, and the Court of Civil Appeals, both of which have 5 judges. And then over us is the 9-member Alabama Supreme Court, consisting of a Chief Justice and 8 Associate Justices. So, so the Court of Criminal Appeals hears every appeal from every criminal case in the state, whether it's, if it's appealed directly to us, from even a municipal court or a district court sometimes can do that, but in particular the circuit courts of the state, which are the primary trial courts of the state. And that's where I spent basically 25 years of my time, was either trying cases in that court as a prosecutor, and for a couple of years I was in private practice. But the Court of Civil Appeals doesn't hear necessarily all civil appeals, but it has certain areas that it hears, such as particularly workers' comp appeals, divorce cases, that sort of thing. And then above us, as I said, is the Alabama Supreme Court.
Which you're running for.
Which I'm running for. It's going to be an open seat. I'm not running against an incumbent there, but I'll be running for that court, which hears anybody that comes to our court and loses, whether it's the state or the defendant, they can petition the Supreme Court. But the Supreme Court doesn't have to take it. It's not necessarily, they have discretion as to whether to hear most appeals. And so, and they hear more than just criminal cases, obviously. They hear appeals from the Court of Civil Appeals, from the Court of Criminal Appeals, and some directly from trial courts. So it's the court of last resort in Alabama. Above, of course, the U.S. Supreme Court is above the Alabama State Supreme Court. But frankly, the state Supreme Court now is even more important than it used to be with the current United States Supreme Court that we have. If you remember recently in the Dobbs decision, abortion used to be only dealt with by the federal courts, and the state courts couldn't do anything about it. Well, now U.S. Supreme Court has kicked that back to the state courts. So I'm one of the reasons I want to run is I think we need people on our state Supreme Courts that have our Alabama values, that are conservative, that have the right worldview, and will look at those cases and not be judicial activists, but will enforce the law as the legislature passes it. So that's kind of nowadays that's more important.
It is. That's a good point. That's a real good point, because it is being decided by the state Supreme Court.
Recently, the South Carolina State Supreme Court basically reinstated Roe versus Wade for South Carolina by, I think it was a 1-vote margin. And see, that just shows you how important it is. That could happen if you're not careful.
Well, it'll probably come before y'all.
Possibly.
Probably come before y'all eventually. Tell our viewers, let's see now, on the court, by the way, when you were talking about the current court you're on, the Court of Criminal Appeals, I've had Mary Wyndham on this show, and maybe some others. I had you before when you were running last time. But Mary and I got to talking about what all the Court of Criminal Appeals does. Y'all have an inordinate number of cases. I mean, it's like, she said thousands of cases, but the civil doesn't have as many as y'all do.
We're definitely the busiest court down there as far as caseload goes.
Yeah, that's what she was saying.
I can't remember the exact numbers, but I want to say it's around 1,600 cases a year. At one time, it was as high as 2,000.
Yeah.
And what we've seen, you know, COVID kind of shut down the trial courts.
Right.
It didn't really shut us down, except we couldn't come into the office. But a lot of what we do, we could do remotely anyway, because we don't retry cases. The appellate courts don't have trials. We look at the trials that have been conducted in the lower courts and just make sure they were done right. And if they were done right, we affirm it. If they weren't done right, we send it back. And that's an oversimplification, but that's basically what we do.
Let me ask you a technical question right there that is a layman, not a non-lawyer. Do y'all have discretion, like the Supreme Court, as to whether or not you're going to hear? Do you have to give an opinion about if someone appeals a murder conviction? Let's say somebody's convicted of murder in Mobile, and they appeal that. Probably a defense lawyer would probably appeal, which comes to y'all's court. Right. And are y'all obligated to give an opinion about that?
We are. We're defendants have an appeal as of right. It's called. They have the right to appeal it to our court. It's above us where it's discretionary.
And that's why y'all get more cases, because more than likely a criminal defense lawyer is going to appeal a serious criminal conviction.
Just about any conviction in the state that's obtained through a jury trial is going to be appealed.
But y'all got to look at it.
We do have to look at it.
Now, y'all don't have to grant them a jury trial.
No, we don't have to. You know, we look at it to see, again, if it was done right. If there was some error, if it was an error that affected the outcome of the trial, then we have to send it back.
That's the only way you can overturn it is because of an error.
That's right.
If a lawyer makes a mistake or a judge makes a mistake in something.
That's right. That's right. And so, you know, we don't have to issue a published opinion in every case, but we do issue an opinion in every case, a written opinion. Sometimes they're called.
Confirm it.
That's right. Sometimes they're called memorandum opinions. Sometimes they're published opinions that carry precedential value. But we write an opinion in every case, and whether it's affirming it or whether it's reversing it, either way.
Do y'all get the same? Do they like say by a lottery sort of way? They say, McCool gets 150 cases, and Mary Wyndham gets 150, Beth McCallum gets 200 or whatever it is, randomly.
They're assigned randomly, and the way it works in our courts is we get them assigned randomly, and like death penalty cases, or there are different categories of cases. So like the death penalty cases, for example, wouldn't be put in the same batch of cases to assign out as maybe an appeal from a burglary or something like that, because death penalty cases by their very nature take a whole lot more time and attention from us. So, but in general, so the first case that comes in is randomly assigned to one judge, the next case to another judge, and we just go through that rotation 5 times and then start over. So we generally have the same level of caseload down there.
But aspiring to the Supreme Court, which you're doing, for the seat that Sarah Stewart's vacating to run for Tom Parker's seat. Tom Parker's the current Chief Justice of the 9-member state Supreme Court. He's like me. He's 70 years old, so he can't run again.
Right.
I think Tom and I went to high school together, not together, but with Boy State. But nevertheless, he can't run again. And so Sarah Stewart's one of the 9 sitting members on the Supreme Court, former circuit judge from Mobile. She's running for the Supreme Court, and Chris McCool is running for that vacant seat.
That's right.
Within the system. Now, back to the question I was going to ask you is, y'all pretty much cut off the criminal appeals at y'all's level. Once y'all have told a criminal defendant, no, there's not an error in this case, there ain't much room for them to send that to the Supreme Court.
Well, they have, we've had, I don't know the percentage, but there is a percentage, it's a small percentage, that the Supreme Court does take up.
But they got to say, like the U.S. Supreme Court, this has a right.
That's right. That's right. Now they do what we call, what's called, they petition for a writ of certiorari, which means basically, we want you to hear the case, Supreme Court, and then the Supreme Court looks at that, and then they can either grant the writ or quash the writ or deny it, but occasionally they do, and we've had some cases in the last year that was taken up, and mostly I think the ones that go up there they affirm, but we've had one or two, and we've had one or two. I'm proud to say I've had a couple that I wrote dissents on at our level that were adopted by the Alabama Supreme Court. So, but it's happened to be the opposite way too. Sometimes we have some that I voted to affirm that they overturn, or vice versa. So but it's a very small percentage. I would say. I don't know that number exactly though.
Let's see if I can name, and you help me name the members of the current Supreme Court. Tom Parker, as I said, is leaving, which leaves 8 sitting there. Sarah Stewart's one of those 8. She's moving, aspiring to move Chief Justice. You're aspiring to move to her seat from the Court of Criminal Appeals. There's Kelly Wise, who was a former member of the Court of Criminal Appeals. Jay Mitchell, who came straight to the Supreme Court. Greg Cook, who was just elected last year. Let's see. You
have Greg Shaw.
Greg Shaw, who's been on there a while. Now he came to the Court
of Criminal
Appeals. Okay.
That's right.
Who am I missing?
So you also
Cook took Boland's seat.
That's right. So you have Tommy Bryan.
Tommy Bryan's my good friend. He came from my area of the state.
And he came from the Court of Civil Appeals.
That's
also.
right.
And then you have Will Sellers.
Will Sellers, my good. We have lunch together about once every
right.
2. You have to join us. Start joining us when you get on do the Supreme Court.
Yes, sir.
And I get to have lunch with 2 Supreme Court judges. We usually have lunch about once every month or 2 down there at the farmer's market. He wants to just talk politics.
Oh, yeah, that's great.
So you can join me and Will Sellers.
I need to do that.
Lunch group. I'll tell him when you get on the court, we want you to join.
I'd love to do that.
Because I don't ask any questions about cases. I don't know what cases are coming up. I just talk about races, political races.
Right.
Will's a smart politician.
Absolutely.
A lot of people don't realize how close he is to Kay Ivey. He's Kay Ivey's closest confidant.
I see.
He swore in,
I did see that.
Both times.
Right.
So Will Sellers, name him again, Will Sellers, Jay Mitchell, Greg Shaw, 3,
Tommy Bryan.
Tommy Bryan's 4, Kelly Wise 5,
Sarah
Stewart. Have I said Jay Mitchell?
You have said Jay Mitchell.
Who else is on there?
Well, I've gotten out of, I can't remember who we said.
Anyway, we got most of them.
We got
Will Sellers.
Yeah, Will, and it seemed like there's 1 or 2.
Now, they ain't going to pick on you as a freshman and may give you more cases. Everybody gets the same number of cases on the Supreme Court.
Well, I hope so.
Okay, McCool's a rookie up here. We're going to make him take 15 cases, and we're going to take 5.
I hope if I'm blessed to be able to get on the court, I hope that they don't. But I do understand that seniority means a lot. So I would be the least senior member of the court at that point. So I'm sure I would get some duties that I wouldn't really prefer.
My best friend in the world, my lifetime friend, is Keith Watkins, who is a federal judge here in Montgomery.
Right. And
Senator Shelby made him a federal judge, and he called Keith one night. Keith wasn't even sure he wanted to take that thing.
Wow.
He called him out of the blue. Shelby called him out of the blue. Keith had called Shelby. Keith and I campaigned for Shelby when he first ran for the U.S. Senate in 1986 together. And we were best friends, born the same year, went to school together all of our life. And Shelby called Keith. Well, Keith called Shelby and recommended some guy in Montgomery for that federal citizenship. And Shelby called him that night and said, "No, I want you to do it." Yeah. Made him a federal judge.
Wow. Well, by the way, we left out Brad Mendham.
From Dothan.
From
Brad Mendham.
Yeah,
that's right. I knew we'd miss.
I was trying to think back in my mind to make sure we covered them all. But
now he's like you. He's well respected in his own town.
Very much.
They love him at the First Baptist Church in Dothan.
Yes.
And he goes every Sunday. He's a leader in that First Baptist Church in Dothan.
Yeah, he's very well thought of, as I've learned campaigning in Dothan. He's held in high regard down there.
He sure is. And actually, several of those members are real active in the First Baptist Church here in Montgomery.
Okay.
I know Kelly Wise, her husband Arthur, are. I don't know where Dottie and Tom Parker go to church, but they're real active in their church.
Right.
There's another member of that court, but Mendham's well thought of in Dothan. He lost his first race.
Yeah, but he lost, but then he got reappointed, and then
that's right.
He ran without opposition, I think, and so he'll be up not in 24 but in 26.
One thing that I'll tip my hat to you is, and I said this in a tweet recently, is you're a good, honest, got a good reputation, deep roots in Alabama, but you a hard worker. Anybody who's not bivocational but tri-vocational, you know, and you get up early in the morning to do your jobs, don't you?
Well, you can't grow up working on Harold McCool's farm and not learn hard work.
What do y'all have? What kind of farm do y'all have?
We got 8 chicken houses now. Only 6 of them are operational, and then we had about 200 head of cows. We've leased out most of the farm at this point. I still manage it though. I was running it before Daddy died. My dad had Parkinson's and kind of slowly, you know, had gotten to the point where he couldn't handle it. So for the past 7 or 8 years before he died, I was running it. I was out there not every day, but about every other day and trying to keep everything going. So I learned how to work hard. In my first campaign, I put 62,000 miles on my vehicle in 1 year. So
that's what I thought.
And I don't come from a metropolis, as you know. I live in Gordo.
You got to go. You got to go a long way to get to.
Well, I learned. I tell people I learned 2 things in that first statewide campaign in 2018. Number 1, it's a big state. Number 2, Gordo's not near anything. But I enjoyed it. I can't say I love the travel part, but getting to go all over the state and meet people and you know, the Wiregrass to Huntsville to Mobile. I mean, it's just we've got such an amazing, diverse state, and it's amazing to me, you know, the people that I've gotten to know over the past 6 or 7 years. I'm so blessed. I mean, it's been a blessing. Whether I win the election or not, I've been blessed to get to know so many quality folks.
Everybody who runs statewide says the same thing. That they'll look at me and they fall in love with the state.
Oh, yes.
Coach Toville did that. When he first got on this, came to visit on the show, and later on, he just fell in love, especially with North Alabama.
Oh, yeah.
He fell in love with that Sand Mountain area a lot. But I tell you what, Judge, our time's up. It goes by in a hurry, doesn't it?
Goes by fast.
Folks, our guest tonight has been a very well-respected gentleman from Gordo and Pickens County, Judge Chris McCool, who's currently on the Court of Criminal Appeals, but is trying to move up to the state Supreme Court. He's out working. He'll outwork anybody, I'll tell you that much. He's not a lazy person. He's a smart man, a good, honest man, and he'll be on the ballot next year, Chris McCool, for the state Supreme Court in 2024, which is right upon us. And we thank you for being with us, and we thank you viewers for watching. Hope you tune again next week for Alabama Politics. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.